Okay, at this station, we're going to learn how to transfer pattern markings from a pattern piece to your fabric. So I have a nice square of fabric here. I have my pattern piece with markings. They're not an exact match because I was estimating on my computer, so we're going to do the best we can. So what the tools that we need in order to do this is we need a tracing wheel. And here are two different types. One has a smooth wheel and one has a serrated wheel. The smooth wheel is often easier to work with when you're transferring from a paper pattern because it doesn't damage the paper pattern. The one with the serrated, the bumps, often will rip the pattern with repeated use. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but on a delicate fabric or a fabric that gets marked easily, permanently marked easily like a velvet, you would probably want to use this one instead. The other thing that you're going to need is tracing paper. And this is colored paper, where on one side is this colored wax that you use to transfer the symbols. It comes in a variety of colors, blue, white, red, yellow, and it is a common tool. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to start with having my fabric down, and I'm going to transfer or pin down my pattern piece in a few places so it doesn't move. Now normally you would do this after cutting out your pattern piece from your fabric, but before you unpin the pattern piece. So right now I'm kind of doing it in a false way, or a not so usual way. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start transferring my pattern markings on there. So I'm going to pick up my handy dandy tracing wheel, and I'm going to take my tracing paper and I'm going to put it underneath. Now because we're only doing one layer of fabric, I'm just going to lay it flat with the white side facing down because I don't want the red all over my table. It does transfer onto pretty much everything. You'll notice, I don't know if you can see in this video, but it's already on my fingers. So what we're going to do is transfer the markings. So some of them are fairly easy to transfer. For a triangle, you just press down. And you got to use a bit of elbow grease here in order to transfer the markings. Right? The square, same thing. Now the triangle and the square, you'll find them on patterns, and they are used for matching up pieces. So if I wanted to match a collar to the bodice of a garment, there might be a triangle or a square there. This capital I marking is actually for a buttonhole. So you just mark the I and then mark across. So that represents the length of the buttonhole. Over here we have two circles, and these are commonly used for adding pockets and other decorative accents that go on top of a garment. So you can't really trace in a circle with this. So what we're going to do is on the small dots, we're just going to make an X. And on the large dot, we're going to make a star. That way we know the difference. Wow, that's a really big star. And the last thing on here that we need to mark using our tracing wheel is actually this triangle piece here, and that's for a dart. And a dart is used to create shape. So if you've ever tried to turn a cutout circle into a cone, you know, you cut out a triangle from it or put a slit in it. So the same principle works here. This is going to fold across and create shape in our garments. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to mark the two sides and the center. So the two sides, and I usually do this with a ruler, but I forgot to bring one with me while I was doing this. The two sides are called the dart legs. Okay, and you need to press fairly hard. And again, you're going to want to mark the center line, which is the fold line. This is where the dart marks in half. So what I've done is I've transferred all of these markings now to my garment. to my fabric, but you can see how well this smudges. So that's why I did it on the back side of the fabric. So this is the side of the fabric that will be on the inside, just in case it doesn't come off. It does usually come off though. The other thing we need to mark are these notches. Notches are used to line up two different pattern pieces. So if you were making a pair of pants, this notch here would match up with another notch on another piece so that you would know where to put them. So rather than marking them with our tracing paper, what we do is we actually notch them out. So I've got my sewing shears here. This is one of the only times it's okay to cut paper. And I'm just going to use the tips of them to mark them. Now this one I don't need to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do, because I know that the big notch means something different. So I'm just going to do the two outside sides of it. So what that does is it creates a fabric flap inside the seam allowance. Oops, where's the other one? That allows me to line up to find that later. And the last thing we can clip is actually the bottom of the dart legs. Along with where the fold line is. And that allows us to easily find it and fold it later. So now your job is to use this pattern piece and the tracing paper and the tracing wheel to transfer the markings from the pattern piece onto a piece of fabric. You're going to need to select the correct color of tracing paper for the fabric you're using. When you're done, make some notes into your sewing journal and add your sample.